dedicated to each and every one of you who appreciate a great glass of wine. You know what I mean?
It's Monday. Let's raise a glass to the beginning of another week. It's time to unscrew, uncork, or saber a bottle. And let's begin exploring the wine glass. Today, we are returning to Italy for the final segment of the Wine Scholar Guild's Abruzzo webinar. Join me as I learn from the WSG Italian Program Director, Andrea Eby, and two winemakers from Abruzzo. Together, they discuss their regions as well as key wine styles. I hope you have enjoyed this series. I absolutely adore Abruzzo wines and hope to return to the region again soon. While you are listening, it would be greatly appreciated if you could take 1 minute to subscribe, rate, and review. It takes only a few seconds of your time, but means so much to the show. Also, please be sure to check that box for automatic downloads so that new episodes of Exploring the Wine Glass show up in your next up feed. The next best way to support Exploring the Wine Glass is to tell your friends. If you enjoy the podcast, your wine-loving friends will too. Follow me on all the socials, and finally, don't forget to head to the website exploringthewineglass.com to read the blog and sign up for the newsletter to keep up with all the happenings. Slancha!
Give me the red wine. Give me the blanche.
Hey everybody, I'm Lori Budd, a UC Davis winemaking program, Spanish wine scholar, sommelier service, champagne and Côte d'Aron specialist, and a WSET Level 2 graduate. You can find Exploring the Wine Glass on all the socials as well as your favorite podcast catchers. If you haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to swipe, subscribe, rate, and review. Stay in the know about all things wine by visiting my website, exploringthewineglass.com. I promise I'll never tell you what to drink, but I'll always share what's in my glass.
Water go turn right into wine.
Hey everybody, I want to introduce you to the Wine Tasting Club card. This club entitles members to receive half off wine tasting flights at 100 plus partner wineries, vineyards, and tasting rooms for an entire year. Choose from the VIP e-card plastic wallet that is embossed with your or your gift recipient's name, or you can choose to download a VIP e-card mobile app to your phone. This month's special price is only $29 for a 1-year membership. Take time to order the Wine Tasting Club cards online today and save $5 with promo code WINE5. That's WINE, the number 5. Visit their website, www.winetastingclubcard.com, to order your card today.
So you and I can feel the vine.
Okay, Stefano, the attention's all on you now, so you're in the hot seat.
No worries.
Just one little couple slides here about Pecorino in general, and this is of course from the Consorzio. They're sort of things that they want to focus on for Pecorino. Some of the things that they are saying in terms of the characteristics of the grape variety, and but I'm really interested in your experience with Pecorino and what you can tell us about the grape variety and your experience with it in the winery and in the vineyard and the winery. But before we go into that, maybe can you tell us a little bit about De Fermo and how you came to be a winemaker, not a lawyer, or a winemaker and a lawyer?
No more lawyering in a few years, actually. De Fermo is basically the most important thing to say that is a full circle farm in which the vineyard is just the 10% of the land. So 90% of the land is made by other farming activities, basically olives, cereals, and legumes, herbs, cows, bees, etc. So we produce wine, but we produce olive oil, flour, pasta, bread, legumes, vegetables, and honey. We do not anything with the cows. It's a full circle farm. The vineyard is around 17 hectares, so it's pretty tiny vineyards. The full farm is 170 hectares, and is all certified, both organic, but most important for us is biodynamic. Is one of the largest biodynamic farm in Italy, one of the 5 larger. But and that's it. So vineyard has been my first love in farming. I started to manage just 1 hectare of this vineyard when I still used to be a lawyer, and just started to produce a little quantity of wine in 2010, and then step by step we started to do new experiences with white and rosé wines, etc. So I started to manage all the vineyard in 2014 and all the farm in 2018. Okay. So, but the place is a very long history. It is a quite rare thing for this region, because this farm is working continuously, at least since the 9th century, so more than 1,000 years. People used to do exactly the things that we are doing now, so viticulture, olive culture, and cereals, since the beginning, since the Middle Ages, basically. Not the family, because the family bought the place in 1785, but before was owned by another family, and before by an abbey of Benedictine monks. So it's a farming place. And we are farmers more than wine producers, basically. So,
one of the things, I was going to say, one of the things I found really kind of not interesting, but that to me really speaks about the places. I've heard you say before that you're about equidistant from the southernmost glacier in in Europe and to the sea. So maybe tell us a little bit more about Loreto Abruzzo.
So Loreto Abruzzo is our village. Has a very, very long tradition in farming, more in olive and cereals rather than wine, and it's pretty famous for winemaking, because we are so lucky that we have the Valentini family that started to bottle their wine in the 60s, and they become immediately some of the best wine around the world. So we are lucky that Loreto have this family, and so the wine lovers knows about Loreto Abruzzo.
Okay.
And the position is a pretty particular, because exactly in the middle between the glacier and the sea, we have the 2 biggest mountains of the Apennines very close to us. So the influence of the mountains are very important, rather than the sea, more than the sea. And is a quite energetic place. So we are allowed to do this kind of farming thanks to this fantastic place. And the city on winemaking, we are kind of Flintstones, because we work in a very old cellar, and we basically we work as people used to work a very long time ago. So we work we do not work with modern technologies. Of course, we have pump and some machine, but we do not use any kind of aid ingredients and we do not filter, we do not stabilize, we do not clarify the wine. So basically we of course are very grateful to science, because science is a gift. So we are not practicing magic stuff or esoteric activities. So we are very grateful to science, and we do analysis on our juices and wines. But we are absolutely sure that science in 2023 is not able to explain 100% of the process. And we are ready and easy to know that there's a little percentage of the fermentation process that is not just not you cannot explain 100%, and we work with this portion of unknown, and we accept.
Can you tell me a little bit about Pecorino as a grape variety, how it is to grow and how it is to work with?
Yeah, Pecorino, as I said, is we are very happy to work with, because it's a very rustic and variety. So, of course, rather than the opposite of Chardonnay, that is another variety that we work with. So it has Pecorino. It defends very well against frost, against mildew, against peronospora and oidium, everything. So, and the most nice thing that is a kind of mountain variety and keeps a very high acidity. And we do love wine with acidity. So it's our focus when we do the harvest is to keep a very attention to the acidity and to the pH, so the alive acidity of the juice and after all the wine. And Pecorino helps us a lot. We work for some technical information. We usually, when we pick up for harvesting, the Pecorino has the pH is around 3.00. Wow. And until 2016, it never did the malolactic fermentation, and was in the very first year, 2013, we was a little bit scared to bottle wine without malolactic fermentation, but at the end, for our experience in that vintages, it never starts also in the bottle. So until 2016, we bottled without any malolactic fermentation. Then in 2017 it started, but I used to say as a joke that it started in the fields during the harvest, because it was a very hot and full of light harvest. So it started, and now it always does the malolactic fermentation.
Sorry,
in the last 2-3 years.
I just a question about that. Do you think that that's partially because now you have a kind of population of that bacteria in the winery that you have that, or is it more climatic that it's happening?
I think that it's more climatic, because it was funny because there was tonneau and barrel of other things doing the malolactic, and it never starts.
Okay.
But actually, it comes inside in a very the biggest issue about climate change is that in the cellars in the last 5-6 years, it changes a lot the population of yeast and bacteria. So everything changed actually here in Italy, in Europe, basically.
Yeah, that's something you really don't think of as an impact of climate change, but a huge impact on the wines when you have something like that happening going on. Okay, so I'm going to just go ahead and kind of taste the Don Carlino. If you could tell us, this is the 2020 vintage that I have. So it has a little bit of age on it, which I think is a nice thing for Pecorino. It's to me, it really starts to develop more complexity with some bottle age, and so I was really happy to find this wine. Maybe, can you tell us a little bit about how you feel Pecorino changes over time in the bottle?
Yeah, so just to say that now we are selling the 2022, but if I could, I would sell now the 14 or 15. Because thanks to this acidity, even if it does the malolactic, the acidity is very high. So people is happy drinking young Pecorino, but after a few years, it composed in a more complex balance. So for sure, if you have the chance to drink some more aged Pecorino, is absolutely better. Don Carlino comes from, of course, we do harvest in little basket. Obviously, the harvest is by hand, in little basket. And then we do not use modern presses, but we just use the vertical press that we use to call torchio. And just part of the grape is the stem, part is not the stem, so is a full bunch.
Okay.
And it ferments basically in tonneau and in big barrel of 20-25 hectoliters. So the fermentation is in oak, not new, very well seasoned oak that we buy in Austria, and just that. So the fermentation is absolutely spontaneous. I mean, there's no any kind of pied de couve, no heads of yeast, and no temperature control. So the fermentation is sometimes are warm, but we are not worried of that. At the end of fermentation, we just fill the barrel. We do not do any rack. So basically, we keep the wine on the full lee of fermentation until the spring. We do the first rack in March, April, if we have no problem of reduction. And then a second rack before bottling in July. So it's more or less is a very, very Flintstone way of producing, but is our way to work. So
yeah, and one thing I like about your wines is because you have that, you've made that choice to ferment in the older wood. I never encounter any problems with reduction on your wines. And although I'm sure stainless steel would be easier in a lot of ways, I think the wine is the better for maybe having some air. Is that part of your sort of, winemaking choice, or why haven't you used any stainless steel?
Stainless steel, it could be a good choice because it's very cheap rather than wooden barrel and concrete, and obviously it's very easy to wash.
Yeah.
So it's very
yes.
While barrels is pretty complicated. But in my experience, when you work with an alive material, in an alive liquid, in stainless steel, it goes in a true reduction, because in the stainless steel, our wine doesn't breathe, while they need a lot of air and not a lot of nitrogen. So I think that for our wine, stainless steel is not the right cup of tea. It's a good cup of tea because alive things needs a lot of air.
And do you do any sort of in the oak or in the cement? Do you do lees stirring at all, or is it more kind of you leave it alone until you rack it?
No, in the last year we used to do batonnage regularly, but in the last 3-4 years we stopped to do batonnage, and it's a kind of every single year is a new experience. So in the last 3-4 years, also due to the changes that we had with bacteria and yeast, we started to do new experiences. So we not to move a lot the wines and keep more the lees inside. So it's a kind of every single year we are at school, so we try to learn always about what is happening in the cellar, actually.
And now, a word from our sponsor. Looking to be in the know about Dracaena wines? Want to be the first to know about our new releases and special offers? All you need to do is sign up for our newsletter. There is no commitment necessary, and I promise you we won't spam your mailbox with loads of messages. Need another reason to sign up? Quite possibly the best reason? You'll immediately get a discount code for 10% off your first purchase and be privy to newsletter-only discounts. Let Dracaena Wines turn your moments into great memories. Visit our website, www.dracaenawines.com, or use the link in show notes to sign up. It will take you less than a minute, but the rewards will last a lifetime.
I'm just kind of keeping an eye on the Q&A in case there's things that I can't answer that you would be better suited to answer. And somebody's asking, do you find your wines taste differently based on what day it is according to the biodynamic calendar?
They're not exactly. So biodynamic calendar is a very useful thing to use more for working the fields, etc. But it's not a rule, it's not a protocol, because calendar is for an hemisphere, while my land, my farm has a singular and individual needs that is not exactly the same of my neighbor. And so about the taste, in the wine in Roots Day or Flower Day, etc., the experience, in my opinion, is not so clear. It depends. The wine changes a lot due to a lot of different when they are alive, I mean, due to different things, also to our situation, personal situation, our hormones, our
Right.
moral, our happiness or not. So it changes a lot. It's true that these wine are not an insurance. They are not. I cannot guarantee that this wine could be the same bottle by bottle for sure. That's it, because that is the only thing that is true. That when the wine is alive, continue to change and to evolve and in the bottle, even if they come from the same barrel. Two bottle could be different.
Okay. Just tasting the wine, and yeah, I mean, the things that are really standing out for me are that really sort of almost electric kind of quality to the acidity in there, even after, almost 4 years or 3.5 years of age. It's really still this vibrant acidity that is so mouthwatering. And really these flavors of grapefruit and blood orange and that really citrus kind of zest to it. Really still, I was expecting that to have kind of, calmed down a little bit, because I find that in Pecorino, that kind of grapefruit sort of thing quite dominant often. But now it's starting to be joined by these really beautiful kind of herbal notes, and the texture seems to be changing a little bit. So yeah, it's fantastic. I know I'll be enjoying the rest of the bottle probably with dinner. But anything else about flavors of Pecorino, or anything that you think people should look out for? Or?
Well, and I start telling you briefly my experience with Pecorino, because when I started to grow or better to manage the vineyard with the Pecorino and started to do the vinification with the Pecorino, actually I didn't know exactly what Pecorino should have been, because there was no natural wine Pecorino producer in the region, actually. So all the Pecorino that was produced when I start was basically blend of different grapes with a lot of Pecorino, but with industrial yeast, etc. So basically, I didn't know, except of course Medio Pepe. Except of course Medio Pepe, that was one of the very few. So my experience with the Pecorino started with my taste in the cellar, and I can tell you that the most important flavor that you can taste just during since the starting of the fermentation is the grapefruit.
Okay.
The grapefruit is a flavor that we taste and in the tonneau when it's fermenting, at the end of fermentation, etc. Then it goes basically in more complex flavor, but of course the grapefruit in my opinion, should be one of the characteristics of the Pecorino.
Okay, good. Well, Stefano, thank you so much. I'm going to let you.
Thank you.
I'm going to let you go, because I know you have been taking time out of your evening to do this, and I really appreciate it. I was going to mention to people that are watching, if you want to know more about Stefano's other wines, there's a great YouTube, the interview you did with Nelson for 67 Pall Mall, where you talk about your Chardonnay, the Pecorino. So if people want to search that up, you can learn more about De Fermo and the other wines you produce, because you do produce some fantastic Montepulcianos and some Cerasuolo that's fantastic as well. So thank you so much for joining us, and I really appreciate it. And I will be sure to stop by at Vin Italy and taste the rest of the wines.
Thank you. I suggest you all to visit Abruzzo.
Yes, I do. I suggest the same thing. It is a beautiful, beautiful region, and it's off too many people's radar. And the producers are so welcoming, and the countryside is so beautiful. It is something that wine lovers should definitely put on their list of places to visit. So thank you again, Stefano.
Thank you.
Thanks, okay. Stefano. I wanted to mention a couple other wines here, just because I had told people I was going to be tasting this. So the Cirelli is another one of the kind of, I would say, really sort of new producers, not new in terms of only be doing this for a few years, but one of the producers who has really kind of embraced a different philosophy, and just, looking at this beautiful kind of cherry color to this wine. And really that nose is just so much about that really exuberant red fruit, the cherries, the plum, the strawberry. And these wines for me are fantastic sort of bridging wines where you're not sure if you need a red or white. You can always go with this kind of Cerasuolo sort of style from Abruzzo. And it is that more kind of full-bodied style of Rosato and a nice bit of that sort of tannic grip on the finish. And then the last one is the Villa Baccarelli, the 2020, the Montepulciano d'Abruzzo. And I opened this last night with dinner. And it is such a great, I think, crowd-pleasing style of red wine. It has this kind of lushness and ripeness and fullness to it that, fans of, California Cab, etc., really appreciate. Shiraz, that sort of full-bodied black cherry kind of aspect to it. Yet the mouthfeel, even though it's so full, it's those kind of really lush, velvety tannins that just make it so approachable to almost anybody. And I don't find that people find it too aggressive in the mouth, even though it comes with this natural sort of intensity with it. So yeah, I'll have another little sip of this.
Yeah, this is so I was only able to source 2 of the wines, Andrea, and again, I'm in Central Florida, so everybody has had some pros and cons, and I know that's one of our questions that we'll address in just a little bit, is about how do you get these wines. So I have a Montepulciano. It's actually a DOC version that I have. I've seen it also as an IGT, but just the fruit aspect of it is just lovely. And to your point, the acidity and the softer tannins, it's a great everyday drinking wine to me.
Yes.
That you just want another sip.
Yeah, exactly. I see Diana saying, yes, very limited availability of Abruzzo wines in Ontario. So you're looking a lot of them being that sort of primarily Montepulciano d'Abruzzo. And I would say that, that is the case in a lot of, at least I would say, sort of speak for Canada, a lot of sort of Canadian provinces. It is definitely the Montepulciano that is the more commonly seen. Was kind of lucky in the sense that I'm the importer for Tiberio in Manitoba, and so I was able to bring some of those wines into Manitoba. Unfortunately, we're sold out right now, and that's why I had to go begging to Stephen to spot me a bottle. But and then the other ones actually kind of are more associated with, for failure of a better term, the more sort of natural wine kind of scene, even though I find, all 3 of these wines extremely clean and focused, and, it's just maybe more the approach of the producers are kind of associated with that sort of different philosophy in terms of farming and winemaking. But we're very lucky to have a couple places in the city that really kind of focus on those styles of wine. So I was able to source a few different styles of wine. So I would suggest, looking at maybe some of the importers or shops that kind of focus more on that sort of low intervention style of winemaking, and you might be able to find a few more examples that way.
Wine.com and winesearcher.com and find, although granted I didn't have anything here in St. Petersburg, Florida, that there are some other places perhaps in your nearby vicinity. Mine are up in Atlanta or in New York, so you can order direct a lot of times in those areas. So those 2 sites.
There was a question about the DOCs, and it is slightly kind of confusing because in the presentation last week, they focus on a few of those DOCs, and I just wanted to explain, and not all of the DOCs in Abruzzo, and I just wanted to kind of give a quick explanation of that. And that's because the presentation itself was originally created by the Consorzio, and the Consorzio does not represent all of the DOCs in Abruzzo. They represent some of them. So they really put the focus on some of those appellations, but not all. So please, read that chapter and you will see that there are more DOCs in Abruzzo, and there's even more to discover out there. And then Jesus had said currently 7 DOCs. Actually, I think there's 9 DOCs right now, and then the 2 DOCGs. So I think that is the current situation there. Peter's asking, are the canes pruned back to the permanent cordons each year? And I'm assuming that you're talking about Cristiana's pergola. Yeah, I would assume that those are pruned back. It's probably a very big job to do that. But I can certainly follow up with Cristiana and ask that question specifically. So let me just make a note about that. Okay. Sorry, I missed it. In Tiberio vineyards, do they use layering with pergola when replacing the dead vines? I think they're actually doing like more of a propagating the massal selection and then replanting that way, Dilek. But that's a great question. I can ask that as well to Cristiana. And yes, they are just beautiful vineyards for sure. So Cristiana mentioned Trebbiano Spolentinos a lot as a grape variety. Is it allowed in the Trebbiano d'Abruzzo wine blend? Not to my knowledge. I think it's just a blend, either or a blend of the Trebbiano Toscano and the Trebbiano Abruzzese. Okay. Would you say Pecorino is a good alternative for Chardonnay drinkers? Good question. I think it really depends on the style that the winemaker has chosen to make that wine in, because you can find examples of Pecorino that are sort of made to mimic like a New Zealand style of Sauvignon Blanc that are very like herbaceous and really focused on primary fruit. And then you can find Pecorinos that are fermented and aged in oak that have much more of that sort of, and especially if they've been kind of pushed through malolactic, then they can much more sort of resemble the body and weight of a Chardonnay. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a replacement for Chardonnay, but I think that a lot of Chardonnay drinkers can find things within a Pecorino that, especially the ones that are made in that more sort of oxidative kind of style, that they could probably enjoy. Grape variety mix at De Fermo. In terms of in the vineyards, I'm really not sure. I know that they do produce the Chardonnay, which is a great example of Chardonnay from Abruzzo. And, that's considered a very traditional variety there because it has been planted for a long time in that particular region. And then, of course, they have the Pecorino and Montepulciano. And I'm not sure if they do any Passerina or Cocciola, but you can definitely send Stefano a note there, and I'm sure he'd be happy to give you the exact breakdown. Considering the best known attributes of these whites are the bright, crisp light floral and mineral characteristics, are they not suited to say mallow or oak treatments? I'm not sure if you're advocating for oak or against oak in this example, CJ. I mean, again, it really goes back to what is the winemaker trying to do with this wine in the winery. If you are really trying to capitalize on that bright fruit floral kind of characteristic, then using oak that has that still is giving flavor to the wine, or really pushing the wine through mallow would kind of cover up some of those really bright floral characteristics. However, if you're just sort of more embracing, letting the wine kind of take its own path, and you're using oak as more a neutral aging vessel that you're just allowing a little ingress of oxygen into, then you're going to kind of subdue a little bit of those floral kind of bright fruit characteristics, but you'll probably gain a little bit in terms of complexity and maybe emphasizing that sort of mineral character to the wine. So again, lots of things coming into play, and most winemakers are really sort of taking it based on, what does the fruit give you in that particular vintage, right? And you might have some differences year to year because of that.
So Andrea, in your mind, point of view with the Pecorino, because a lot of people have been putting in the chat, it was this was the first time people have been introduced to Pecorino.
Okay.
And good conversation point is would you consider this a good alternative for those that are looking for Chardonnay alternative or a Sauvignon Blanc alternative? I mean, the acidity is more.
Yeah, like you really need to know the producer. So there are some really great examples that the producer is choosing to kind of pick a little bit earlier, fermenting in stainless steel at a cooler temperature, really emphasizing those kind of herbal, herbaceous notes there. Of course, that natural acidity. Then you end up with something, especially if you age it in stainless steel or a neutral vessel. Then you end up with something that's resembles Sauvignon Blanc in a lot of ways. If you choose to go a little more sort of less productive and maybe incorporate some oak, then yes, you can get something that's a little closer to Chardonnay. I find that there's just a different quality to the acidity in Pecorino. It's just this really electric style of acidity. I find a lot of Chardonnay just really doesn't have Chardonnay tends to have, to me, a little more integrated type of acidity, more roundness to the acidity. And so that might be something that people kind of stands out for them. However, I think you have either of those styles with a meal and that acidity becomes just a really, beautiful part of how the wine, it's one of those beautiful things that it brings to the table because it has that acidity that works so well with food.
Very food friendly.
Somebody's asking DOPG versus DOP. Please explain. So, yeah, that's a bit of a larger conversation. But if you imagine all the Italian wine kind of made in this sort of pyramid with your sort of table wine at the bottom, just your vino, and then your sort of IGT or IGP, which is more something like Toscana, IGP, Abruzzo, the IGP for Abruzzo now, right? The grapes can come from anywhere within that region. There's a little more flexibility in terms of the rules and regulations you need to follow. And then when you get to your DOP or DOC, then we're getting a little more specific about where that wine comes from. So, for example, you would in Abruzzo, you could have the wine specifically coming from the Ceresuolo d'Abruzzo DOC or DOP, right? So we know where it's coming from, the grapes are coming from. We know what the grapes are because that's all in those rules for it. We know how it's made because those rules are set out within the regulations as well. Then when you get to the very top of the pyramid, you have the DOPG or DOP or DOCG. And here we're talking about the wines from, in Abruzzo's case, like our Colline, Terramani, Montepulciano d'Abruzzo, and your Terre Tolesi, DOCG. Those are even more specific about where those grapes are coming from, where they're being grown, and there's just more rules and regulations. It's not necessarily saying at all that the wine is better. It's just giving you, as the consumer, much more about the sort of parameters within which that wine was made. Okay, so you think about it getting more restrictive in terms of rules and regulations as you move up that pyramid. Because there was a question last week about bottling within the region or outside of the region. And I did want to say I did a little more kind of digging into that. And that was one of the things that people were really curious about. And I was kind of mentioning that it was something that maybe was holding the region back in terms of quality. And currently, it is about 50% of Montepulciano d'Abruzzo itself. So just that particular wine that's bottled outside of the region. So one of the things in the reason I brought this slide up was that now you see there's this mention of superiore and reserve that can only be used for these subzones, okay? And if you want to put superiore or reserve on the bottle now, it must be bottled in one of these subzones. So this is their way of trying to sort of up the quality level there, I think, by saying that now if you want to put those things on the bottle, you can't be bottling it outside of Abruzzo. You need to be doing it within these subzones. So I think it's a step in the right direction in terms of kind of tightening up some of those rules and regulations that were perhaps holding it back a little bit.
Any other words of advice to everybody studying or preparing anything about Abruzzo? I think go visit.
Yeah, go visit. You know, when you can, like look for those wines. Take some of the advice that some of the participants had said today about where you might be able to find some of these things. You know, maybe if you haven't ventured to more of a low intervention wine fair or something before, you know, maybe or explore that part on a wine list, because you might find some more things from Abruzzo there, kind of just looking in a little different direction than you're used to. So, thank you everybody for joining us. It's been super fun to really look into Abruzzo a little bit closer, and I do hope that everyone takes Stefano's advice and finds time to visit Abruzzo. If it's you should definitely go for the wine, but go for the beaches, go for the seafood, go for the nature. There's just so many wonderful things that Abruzzo has to share. So thank you. And we'll see you again soon. So sorry, just.
There was no brandy, there was no martini, Irish.
This has been another episode of Exploring the Wine Glass. Thanks for listening. If you have suggestions on what topics you would like me to discuss, please reach out on social media. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook as Exploring the Wine Glass. I am also on LinkedIn as Lori Hoyt-Budd. Of course, you can always email me at exploringthewineglass@gmail.com and sign up for my newsletter at exploringthewineglass.com. If you enjoyed what you heard, please rate, review, and subscribe to help others find me more easily. And most importantly, tell your wine-loving friends, because if you like the podcast, they will too. Podcast music is Wine by Kevins. Until next week, slancha.
There is always time for a good glass of wine. Never let you go. No, never let you go. I want a nice glass right now.